Have you ever thought about what it takes to walk alone? To truly stand by yourself in a world that pushes us constantly to conform. Today, I want to explore the courage it takes to walk alone like a lone wolf and the quiet power that lies in embracing our path, no matter how unconventional or uncertain it may be. Being alone doesn't mean you're lonely, weak, or lacking in some way. Walking alone like a lone wolf is a sign of strength. It's knowing that you can stand by yourself, that you're brave enough to withstand the opinions, judgments, and expectations that others might project onto you. Embracing your inner strength in solitude is a powerful act of self-respect. It's about saying, I know who I am and I trust myself to walk this path, whether anyone else is with me or not. Embracing your inner strength is about recognizing and honoring the power within you, a power that often goes unnoticed in the noise and rush of daily life. It's that quiet, steady voice inside, the part of you that knows who you truly are even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. In a society that celebrates external accomplishments, job titles, wealth, popularity, it can be easy to forget that our deepest strength doesn't come from what we have or how others perceive us. It comes from a source within, a well of resilience, wisdom, and courage that belongs solely to us. Finding this strength requires looking inward. So often we seek answers outside ourselves, hoping others will tell us what to do or validate our worth. We search for approval from friends, family, colleagues, even strangers. But when we rely on others to define us, we give away our power. Embracing inner strength means reclaiming that power and knowing that we can trust ourselves to handle whatever comes our way. It's about developing a belief in ourselves that is so rooted and resilient that it doesn't waver in the face of others' opinions, criticisms, or expectations. This journey isn't always easy. It often means confronting doubts, fears, and insecurities we'd rather ignore. Inner strength doesn't mean we're free from self-doubt or fear. It means we don't let those feelings control us. It's about facing our vulnerabilities head-on, understanding that courage and vulnerability are two sides of the same coin. To be strong internally, we must be willing to acknowledge and embrace our imperfections. Our flaws, mistakes, and past experiences shape us, but they do not define us. When we understand this, we begin to develop an unshakable confidence, not the kind that shouts, but the quiet, unyielding kind that knows who we are, even on our worst days. As we begin to embrace this strength, we also become more resilient. Life will test us, there's no avoiding that. We'll face setbacks, disappointments, and losses. We might lose relationships, miss opportunities, or stumble in our careers. But when we have a deep connection to our inner strength, these obstacles become opportunities to grow rather than reasons to give up. We learn to see challenges as part of our journey, as experiences that shape us rather than break us. Each time we get up after a fall, we build a little more resilience, and that resilience reinforces our inner strength. Moreover, embracing our inner strength gives us a foundation for authentic self-expression. When we know and trust ourselves, we no longer feel the need to play small, to conform, or to shrink to fit someone else's idea of who we should be. We can show up in the world as our true selves, bringing our unique gifts, perspectives, and ideas to the table without fear of judgment. This authenticity isn't about disregarding others' thoughts or feelings. Rather, it's about honoring our truth and standing firm in who we are. We become comfortable in our own skin, accepting ourselves wholly and unapologetically. Inner strength also empowers us to set boundaries that protect our well-being. When we trust our worth, we no longer feel obligated to overextend ourselves or to compromise our values just to make others happy. We start to see that saying no when necessary is not selfish but an act of self-respect. This strength teaches us to value ourselves and our energy, to invest in relationships, situations, and pursuits that uplift and nourish us rather than drain us. Boundaries become a natural extension of self-love, a reflection of our commitment to honoring our needs. Embracing inner strength, then, is an ongoing journey. It's a commitment to self-discovery, to showing up for ourselves day after day, even when it's hard. It's about learning to stand tall in our values, in our convictions, and in our worth. It is a journey of patience, growth, and self-acceptance, a journey that transforms us from the inside out. Finding power in solitude is about discovering a deep, unwavering connection with ourselves, a connection that's only possible when we step away from the noise of the world and allow silence to fill the space around us. In solitude, we find a rare opportunity to turn inward, a space to listen to our own thoughts, emotions, and desires without external influence. It's a time to disentangle ourselves from the demands and expectations of others and to focus on understanding who we are when no one is watching. In this space of solitude, we can uncover parts of ourselves that often go unnoticed, a process that can lead to profound growth and self-awareness. Solitude often brings clarity. When we're constantly surrounded by people or inundated with information, our thoughts can feel jumbled, tangled in the expectations, judgments, and ideas of others. Alone, we can sift through these thoughts and strip away what isn't truly ours. We're able to ask ourselves questions we might not have the time or courage to ask otherwise. What do we really want? What do we genuinely believe? Who are we at our core, separate from the roles we play for others? In solitude, we can begin to find answers, not because someone else has provided them, but because we've taken the time to sit with ourselves long enough to hear our inner voice. Spending time alone also nurtures self-reliance. In solitude, we learn to be our own source of comfort, encouragement, and motivation. We realize that we don't always need someone else's approval or validation to feel whole. This process can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if we're accustomed to seeking reassurance or guidance from others. But over time, solitude teaches us to trust ourselves, to believe in our ability to face challenges, and to make decisions that align with our true values. The more we lean into solitude, the more we cultivate an inner resilience, a quiet confidence that doesn't depend on the presence or opinions of others. Solitude gives us space to reflect on our experiences and emotions. Life moves quickly, and when we're always surrounded by people or distractions, it's easy to brush past significant moments without fully processing them. Solitude offers us a chance to pause, to look back on what we've been through, to feel whatever emotions may arise, and to make sense of our journey so far. It's in these reflective moments that we often gain insight, recognizing patterns, learning from past mistakes, and celebrating our growth. This reflection not only helps us understand ourselves better, but also prepares us for the future, allowing us to move forward with a greater sense of self-awareness. In solitude, we also reconnect with creativity. Without the distraction of others' opinions or the pressure to conform, our minds are free to wander, explore, and imagine. We might find ourselves picking up old hobbies, rediscovering passions, or simply allowing our thoughts to drift in new directions. Solitude nurtures a kind of creativity that isn't necessarily tied to productivity or achievement. It's a creativity that's rooted in curiosity, exploration, and self-expression. When we're alone, we can create for ourselves, experiment without fear of judgment, and follow our interests wherever they may lead. Solitude, then, is not about isolation or loneliness. It's about cultivating a relationship with ourselves. When we embrace solitude, we become more comfortable with who we are, and we learn that our own company can be fulfilling. This inner comfort allows us to be more selective about the relationships and connections we build. We're no longer driven by the need to avoid loneliness. Instead, we seek relationships that genuinely resonate with us, that add to our lives rather than fill a void. In solitude, we find a sense of wholeness that no one else can provide, a strength that emerges from knowing we are enough on our own. Ultimately, the power of solitude lies in its ability to ground us. It allows us to step away from the world, to center ourselves, and to return to our lives with a clearer sense of who we are and what we stand for. This quiet time alone is a gift, a space where we can explore, reflect, and grow without the constraints of societal expectations. Courage to be vulnerable is about daring to show up as our true selves, even when we risk being judged, hurt, or misunderstood. It's about allowing others to see us in our fullness, our strengths, flaws, fears, and dreams, knowing that authenticity requires us to embrace all parts of who we are. Many of us were raised to believe that vulnerability is a weakness, something to hide or push down. We're often taught to wear masks, to present only the parts of ourselves we think others will accept or admire. But true courage lies in peeling back those layers, in letting others see us as we are, imperfections and all. Vulnerability takes immense bravery because it opens us up to the possibility of rejection or criticism. When we're vulnerable, we're saying, "This is me, I'm imperfect, but I'm real," and in a world that often pressures us to conform or perform, this kind of authenticity can feel risky. The fear of being judged can be so strong that we often shy away from showing our true selves. Yet, it's through vulnerability that we create genuine connections with others. When we're willing to share our struggles and insecurities, we give others permission to do the same. We signal that it's okay to be human, to have flaws, to experience fear and uncertainty. In this way, vulnerability becomes a bridge to deeper, more meaningful relationships. Being vulnerable also requires us to confront our fears. We have to face the discomfort of uncertainty, the anxiety of not knowing how others will respond. Vulnerability means stepping into the unknown, trusting that whatever happens, we will be okay. This can feel daunting, especially if we've been hurt or let down in the past. But every time we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we build inner strength. We prove to ourselves that we're resilient, that we can handle discomfort and disappointment. Vulnerability doesn't protect us from pain, but it does show us that we're strong enough to move through it. In embracing vulnerability, we also learn to let go of perfectionism. So many of us carry around the belief that we need to be flawless to be worthy of love or respect. We hide our mistakes, downplay our weaknesses, and try to present a polished image to the world. But perfectionism is a heavy burden, one that often leaves us feeling isolated and exhausted. Vulnerability allows us to release that burden. It reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to be valuable. When we're vulnerable, we acknowledge that we're a work in progress, and we accept that being human means we'll make mistakes along the way. Vulnerability is also an act of self-acceptance. When we show up as our authentic selves, we're saying that we're enough just as we are. We're not waiting until we've achieved a certain level of success, lost a certain amount of weight, or fixed every perceived flaw. We're choosing to embrace ourselves in this moment, even with all our imperfections. This self-acceptance is a form of inner freedom. It allows us to stop striving for validation from others and start validating ourselves. Ultimately, vulnerability connects us to our humanity. It reminds us that we're all in this together, that everyone experiences struggle, fear, and doubt. When we're vulnerable, we create space for empathy and compassion, both for ourselves and others. It's through vulnerability that we find courage, not the kind that requires us to be fearless, but the kind that lets us be open, real, and unguarded. In choosing vulnerability, we're choosing to live a life that is rich, authentic, and deeply connected. Building resilience through independence is about learning to stand on our own, trusting in our ability to handle life's ups and downs without constantly relying on others for support or validation. It's a powerful skill, one that enables us to navigate challenges, adapt to change, and move forward, even when things don't go as planned. Independence doesn't mean isolation or rejecting help altogether. Rather, it's about developing an inner strength that allows us to stay steady no matter what life throws our way. When we cultivate resilience through independence, we're equipping ourselves with the tools to face adversity with confidence, knowing that we have the capacity to overcome obstacles on our own. This resilience begins with self-reliance. Self-reliance is about trusting our own judgment and believing in our ability to make decisions, even in uncertain situations. It means developing the courage to rely on our inner resources, our skills, wisdom, and experiences instead of always looking to others for answers. In a world that often tells us we need constant guidance or approval, self-reliance can feel challenging. But each time we make a decision on our own, each time we follow through on a goal without leaning heavily on others, we build resilience. We reinforce the belief that we can handle life's twists and turns, that we have the power to shape our own path. This sense of self-trust is a cornerstone of resilience, giving us the confidence to face the unknown with a steady heart. Independence also strengthens resilience by teaching us how to adapt. Life is full of unexpected changes, and when we're overly dependent on others, these changes can feel overwhelming. But when we learn to stand on our own, we develop flexibility. We begin to understand that while we can't always control what happens, we can control our response. Being independent allows us to face challenges head-on without waiting for someone else to guide or rescue us. It encourages us to think creatively, to problem solve, and to adapt when things don't go as planned. This adaptability is a key part of resilience, enabling us to bounce back from setbacks and move forward with a sense of purpose and determination. Through independence, we also cultivate emotional resilience. When we learn to process our emotions on our own, we become less affected by external factors. We begin to see that we're responsible for our own emotional well-being, and we develop the tools to cope with disappointment, frustration, and sadness without needing constant reassurance from others. This doesn't mean we suppress our feelings or avoid connection, but rather that we develop a relationship with ourselves where we feel secure and grounded, even in challenging times. By building this emotional independence, we become less reliant on others to regulate our mood or self-worth, and more capable of finding peace and stability within ourselves. Moreover, independence helps us understand the value of self-discipline and accountability. When we take responsibility for our actions and decisions, we're less likely to blame others when things go wrong. We recognize that our choices have consequences, and this understanding pushes us to think carefully, plan thoughtfully, and follow through with commitment. By holding ourselves accountable, we build resilience, we develop the inner fortitude to handle setbacks without losing faith in ourselves. Independence teaches us that, while others may support us, our lives and our journeys are ultimately our own. This realization empowers us to push through challenges with a sense of ownership and responsibility. Independence also allows us to set boundaries that protect our energy and well-being. When we know we can rely on ourselves, we're less likely to compromise our values or overextend ourselves to please others. We learn to prioritize what truly matters to us and to make choices that align with our goals and beliefs. These boundaries are essential for resilience as they help us conserve our energy and stay focused on what's important. They allow us to navigate relationships with clarity and authenticity, knowing that we don't need others' approval to validate our worth. This sense of self-protection enables us to maintain our inner balance, even in difficult times, and helps us stay true to ourselves amidst external pressures. Ultimately, building resilience through independence creates a foundation of inner strength. Each step we take towards self-reliance, adaptability, emotional resilience, accountability, and boundary setting strengthens our ability to handle life's inevitable challenges. We learn that, while support from others is valuable, we are fully capable of standing on our own 2 feet. Independence is a journey of self-discovery, teaching us that we are enough, that we have the capacity to face adversity with courage and resolve. With each experience, we become stronger, more resilient, and more deeply connected to the power within ourselves. Defining your own path is about breaking away from the expectations and limitations that others might place upon you and choosing to follow what feels true and meaningful to you. In a world where many people are quick to prescribe what success should look like, it can be challenging to step back and ask ourselves what we actually want. Defining our path means taking the time to understand our values, dreams, and goals and pursuing them in a way that feels authentic. It's about trusting our inner voice and believing that we're capable of creating a life that aligns with our deepest desires, even if it doesn't match up with societal norms or family expectations. Creating our own path requires courage because it often means going against the grain. There will always be people who have strong opinions about what we should be doing, how we should be living, or what milestones we should be achieving by certain ages. These external pressures can be powerful, and it's easy to feel tempted to follow the safe or well-trodden path simply to avoid criticism or the fear of failure. But when we conform to a path that doesn't truly resonate with us, we sacrifice a piece of ourselves. Defining our path means choosing not to settle for what's safe or expected and instead listening to the quiet voice within that's guiding us towards something more fulfilling. This journey also involves a lot of self-discovery. When we decide to forge our own path, we have to spend time exploring what truly matters to us. It requires asking ourselves questions that go beyond surface-level desires. What kind of life do we want to live? What values are non-negotiable? What kind of impact do we want to make? These are deep, introspective questions, and answering them honestly helps us gain clarity about the direction we want to go. This clarity becomes a compass, guiding us through moments of doubt or external pressure. The more we understand our values and priorities, the easier it becomes to make choices that align with our true selves. Defining our own path also means embracing uncertainty. When we step off the beaten track, we won't have all the answers or a clear roadmap. There may be twists, turns, and setbacks, but each of these experiences is part of the journey. By choosing our own path, we learn to navigate uncertainty with resilience and adaptability, trusting that even without a clear blueprint, we're moving in a direction that feels right for us. We learn that mistakes and failures are not signs to quit, but rather stepping stones toward growth and wisdom. In pursuing our path, we also build confidence and self-trust. Each time we make a choice that aligns with our values, we reinforce our belief in ourselves. We start to see that we're capable of carving out a life that's meaningful and satisfying, and this confidence encourages us to keep going, even when the road gets tough. The more we trust ourselves, the less we seek validation from others. We realize that our worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval and that our journey doesn't need to make sense to anyone but us. Choosing our own path also allows us to live with authenticity. When we follow a path that's truly ours, we're free to express ourselves fully, without fear of judgment or need for external approval. We're no longer bound by societal standards of success or happiness. Instead, we create our own definitions based on what resonates deeply with us. This authenticity not only enriches our own lives, but also inspires others. When people see someone living in alignment with their values and purpose, it encourages them to consider what their own path might look like. By defining our own journey, we give others permission to explore and embrace theirs. Ultimately, defining our path is about creating a life that feels fulfilling and meaningful to us personally. It's about waking up each day knowing that the choices we make are in service of our own growth, happiness, and purpose. This journey may not always be easy, but it's one that brings us closer to who we truly are, allowing us to live in a way that's uniquely, unapologetically ours. Strengthening connections through authenticity means building relationships based on who we truly are, rather than on who we think others want us to be. When we bring our genuine selves to interactions, we foster trust and openness, creating a foundation for deep and lasting bonds. Authenticity in relationships is about honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to be ourselves, even when we might fear judgment or rejection. It means showing up with our strengths and flaws, with our insecurities as well as our confidence, allowing others to see us fully. By being authentic, we invite others to do the same, making room for connections that are rooted in acceptance and understanding. When we embrace authenticity, we stop hiding behind facades or presenting only the most polished versions of ourselves. So often we put up walls to protect ourselves from potential judgment or rejection, but these walls also prevent others from truly seeing who we are. When we drop these defenses and let people see us as we are, we create space for genuine connection. People are drawn to honesty and openness because they're relatable. Everyone experiences struggles, insecurities, and imperfections. By sharing ours, we make it easier for others to feel safe sharing theirs. This shared vulnerability builds mutual trust and allows us to connect on a more meaningful level. Being authentic also means aligning our words and actions with our values. When we live in accordance with what we truly believe, others can sense our integrity and consistency. Authenticity is not just about what we say, but also about how we show up and follow through. People feel safer in relationships where they know that actions will match words, where intentions are clear, and where there's a solid foundation of honesty. This alignment builds respect and credibility, two key ingredients for strong connections. When others see that we stand by our values, they're more likely to feel a sense of respect and trust in our character, and they're more likely to invest in a relationship built on mutual respect. Authenticity in relationships also involves a willingness to communicate openly, even when conversations are difficult. It's about addressing issues and misunderstandings with honesty, rather than sweeping them under the rug or pretending that everything is fine. Open communication allows for resolution and growth within relationships, strengthening the bond as both parties work through challenges together. When we're authentic in our communication, we signal that we value the relationship enough to engage honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. This kind of transparency builds resilience in relationships, helping them withstand difficult moments because both people know they can rely on each other to speak truthfully. Furthermore, authenticity nurtures empathy and compassion. When we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, we become more understanding of others' vulnerabilities as well. Authentic connections give us a first-hand look at the humanity in others, fostering a sense of empathy that goes beyond superficial interactions. We begin to appreciate the layers of other people's experiences, recognizing that they too have fears, doubts, and hopes. Authenticity removes the judgmental barriers we often place between ourselves and others, creating space for compassion. In this way, authenticity deepens our empathy and enhances the quality of our connections. Authenticity also empowers us to set boundaries that protect our well-being. In authentic relationships, we feel comfortable expressing our needs and limits without fear of losing the other person's respect or affection. We're not trying to please others at the expense of our own values or comfort. Instead, we communicate openly about what we need to feel respected and valued. Boundaries foster a sense of security in relationships, as both people understand each other's limits and can trust that those limits will be respected. By honoring our own needs, we create a foundation for healthier and more sustainable connections, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Living authentically in our relationships also encourages a sense of freedom. When we let go of the need to perform or to fit into someone else's expectations, we feel liberated. We're able to show up fully with all our quirks, dreams, and passions. This openness inspires others to be themselves as well, fostering a relationship dynamic that's vibrant and life-giving. People feel energized in relationships where they can express themselves freely without fear of judgment. Authentic connections bring joy, acceptance, and a deep sense of belonging that only comes when we feel truly seen and valued. In embracing authenticity, we build connections that not only endure but also enrich our lives. When we choose to be real, we attract people who resonate with our true selves, creating a network of relationships rooted in honesty, empathy, and genuine care. Authenticity allows us to build connections that are strong, resilient, and deeply rewarding, filling our lives with relationships that uplift and empower us. In embracing authenticity, we unlock the potential for connections that go beyond surface-level exchanges and transform into meaningful, lasting bonds. When we choose to show up as our true selves, we foster trust, compassion, and empathy, inviting others to do the same. Authenticity allows us to build relationships that are resilient, supportive, and fulfilling, creating a space where we and those we care about feel genuinely seen, respected, and valued. By being honest about our needs, open in our communication, and unwavering in our alignment with our values, we set a foundation for connections that not only enrich our lives but also inspire us to keep growing and evolving together. True connection, rooted in authenticity, brings the freedom to be fully ourselves, a freedom that nourishes and sustains us, allowing us to navigate life with confidence, love, and mutual respect.